Did you know that Florida State's 2024 recruiting class has a world-class sprinter?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. You can catch us every day here on the Locked On Network. You can get us anywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, right here on Locked On Network, your team every day. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by Bird Dogs. This is our sponsor for today, and I've even got the hat on right here. Check out Bird Dogs. You can check out Bird Dogs today's episode. Enter promo code birddogs.com, Locked On College, code Locked On College for a free tech hat with any purchase. I have to admit, it's rather comfortable. Not gonna lie. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I promise you. Today's episode is also one that is a little bit unique because I had the opportunity to go up to Tallahassee, check out Micahi Danzy. He plays at Florida High. It's a part of the institution that is Florida State University. It's their specialty, if you will, to come up with this, because I was on campus for the first time, and that is a beautiful place. If you're in Tallahassee, you want to see a really cool high school, that's not your normal school. It is manicured, and they have a big-time football program. They got beat by Cocoa in the state championship in overtime last year. They've got a lot of talent. Ashton Hampton's going to Clemson. Micahi Danzy going to Florida State. They've got a couple of juniors that are really good. They got talent. They got some size and a few other kids that are a little bit underrated. Really enjoyed it. I want to talk quite a bit about why Micahi is important, playing him with Cam Davis. I actually talked to Micahi about that. And I also want to talk about the ability for Florida State to be that explosive team again. When I was growing up, they were the team nobody wanted to get into a track meet with. They were the fastest team in college football quite often, definitely one of the top 5 year in, year out. And that is why they were so feared. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the linebacker play that is going to be going up against Benson. And then I'm going to flip it around. We're going to talk about FSU's linebacker play against the LSU Tigers, and not just running backs, but like what they bring, experience, etc. I think the leadership factor is going to be very big in this game. I'm not really sure that many teams are going to be able to really match the experience that FSU has. Their inside linebackers and some of the experience as well. It's so important in game one because you can only prepare so much for a first game. You're going to have mental errors. So that leadership, when something goes wrong, very important. So let's start off with Micahi. I'd seen him at Under Armour earlier this year down in Orlando. And I even told him this to his face. I said, I wanted to evaluate. I watched you run around, but it's not the same as watching you get banged and you playing with teammates, because at running back, it's about the physical nature of the sport, etc. And seeing him at practice, it was interesting to me because they had him playing defense at the high school level. You take your best player and they rarely come off the field. He was returning punts, doing different things, just practicing. And they were very, very well coached at his high school. That is a tremendous staff, and they're very consistent. You could tell it's not a normal high school program. And I was just kind of watching him go through. He takes it very serious. Ashton Hampton, the kid going to Clemson, they're good buddies. They have them at the back end at safety. It's as good a 1-2 punch at safety as there is in the country, I can assure you. And I was very surprised at how well they both relate things. The coach there made a very interesting mention to me. This is just crazy. The free safety gets a card and calls the plays. It's not from the sidelines. They put it on the players. Depending on who's in the game, they call it. Hampton calls it sometimes it's Danzy, etc. But the players do. That's how well they're coached. That's going to translate to the next level for both those young men. And good for them. I had not heard that before, but they have the calls. They make the adjustments on the field. That's first. But the real reason I wanted to talk about him was speed. I asked him about what his best time in the 400 was, and he said 45.99. I don't know if he meant 46.99, but he said 45. And if that's correct, even 46.99 is flying. So he's an elite track athlete. That's a quarter mile. When you can flat out sprint a quarter mile, that's one thing. To do it under 50 is good. To get under 48, anywhere in that area, you're in elite territory. Getting down under 47, etc., you're dude. Based on seeing him in terms of how his frame is from the feet to the hips and then the hips to the shoulders, Danzy is exactly what you would look for in a long-range sprinter. 400 is not fun. I can't even imagine doing the half mile. That's not in my realm, but he's very long at the hip, and his stride, even when he was just going 3/4 and they were going through some basic ideas on how they play coverages, who goes where and halves and, playing cover 3, etc. To watch him run in space was really impressive. Going 3/4 speed, like he's a gazelle. He takes such long strides. It made sense why his speed is what it is. He can conserve energy just with his length. I would imagine in the back half of the 200 meters, Danzy does quite well. You can't teach the size. You hear me say that quite a bit. You hear college coaches, college scouts, pro scouts, can't teach size. That's part of it is length. The leg length for a guy that's running off the hash is one thing, and it's also true playing running back. That's the position he is projected at for Norvell and the Noles, and I'm pretty darn sure you're looking at a guy that has the ability to hit the home run, catching a pass, punt return, kick return, toss sweep, inside zone. It doesn't matter. Pretty well built. He could still add some weight. I forgot to ask him how much he weighs right now, but I would guess 180 something, maybe 190. And he's just well put together. Looks like a track athlete. Great kid too. Just really great guy. I was very impressed overall with what I saw. Now, how does he fit in with what the Noles have on the roster or what they do, however you want to put it? We can talk about that all day, but I just want to focus on one thing: thunder and lightning. Cam Davis is one of my favorite recruits in the class of 24, regardless of school, state, position, etc. Might even be my overall favorite for this on and off the field ability, if you will. The first podcast I did here on Locked On was about Cam, and it wasn't by accident. That was flat out calculated. He is also a power runner. He's got speed. He's been clocked at like 21.44 miles per hour, something like that. Cam will thump you. You put him in the backfield with Danzy, you can do some funky stuff with crossbuck, running screens, one of them blocking for the other, etc. And you can also do something that other teams cannot prepare for, even if they know that it's coming. One of them goes to the slot or both. Both of them have natural hands and big time speed. You can be in 22 personnel, means 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. Florida State comes out, first play, run power. Davis off tackle, 2nd down and 5, whatever. Next play, you can hustle to the line and go no huddle. All of a sudden, that same group, you got tight ends, maybe one of them's at an H-back spot, one of them's in the backfield protecting the quarterback, and then your running backs are out wide. One goes in motion, jet mode. You can do all kinds of stuff like that, and you can put both tight ends out there with the running backs. You can put linebackers and safeties in really awkward spots, because if they see 22 personnel, especially if Davis is in the game, teams are going to have to adjust. They're going to have to pick, if you will. There's no free lunch here. The speed of both of those kids is tremendous. And if you, especially with Davis, he coming around the corner, if he gets a head of steam, good luck. For those of you who haven't seen, and many of you probably have on Twitter, he ran over a couple of players in the first game. I mean, with just monstrous hits, just laid them out. Very, very special player. But you put both of those guys out there, it could be a 3rd down and 3. You could move them both to the slot or throw a screen or a toss. One guy gets a fake, or like he's going to take a jet sweep, fake it, toss it to the other one. You've got an incredible combination. Very few teams will have the freshman running back class that Norvell and his staff have. Very few. And it's a very important aspect of football today. It's just matchups. It's like you've heard the old phrase basketball and grass. That's a lot of what they're really doing. And Florida State kind of, I'm not saying they went away from that per se in the last few years, because they certainly have had a great running game. And they obviously last year, it really picked up with the passing game. Jordan threw 24 touchdowns and only 5 picks. But at the same time, you're also talking about a defense that's now going to have to really pick their poison because of the power game. They got 204 starts, I think it is, this year on the offensive line, and they're recruiting better O-line, getting a kid out of the portal every year. I expect the O-line just to be better moving forward. However they get there, got to give Norvell and his staff credit for that. So I'm very, very excited about Danzy, and a great last point about him, just a great young man. He's going to represent Florida State very, very well. So I'm happy to say that he's part of the show for the Florida State Seminoles moving forward. Florida State is not the only thing that I got to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about bird dogs. If you're like me, you're picky about shorts. You're picky about all the things that kind of go on with your day-to-day life. But why not look good and feel good at the same time? Again, I got the hat on. Bird dogs, it's a great company. We're lucky to have them here at Locked On, and I appreciate them sponsoring my show in particular, obviously. Go to birddogs.com, Locked On College, or enter promo code Locked On College for a free white tech hat, this one right here, with your order. That's birddogs.com, Locked On College, or promo code Locked On College for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Yeah, I'm a very big fan of the bird dogs hat. This is about as comfortable a hat I've ever had. I don't know what it is they did, but it just fits my head great. So next thing that I want to discuss is something that I really like to discuss in general, because there's so few guys that can do it right now at the college level. The offenses have the advantage, and that is linebackers in space against talented running backs. Now, we know Jordan's going to run the ball some, going to run some RPO, et cetera, against LSU. No question. Open-ended, etc. But the other side of that is just when he gives it, and even when he fakes, the key is Benson. He'll probably be the bulk of the carries. How does he do against a very talented LSU defense? They're still putting pieces together, and they got some question marks at corner. I'm going to have a whole show on LSU secondary, the way this is going, because it's a bonanza of different news. I'm just a little prelude to next week. I've had a few snippets about it, but the news has changed. So I'm going to wait a little while to go in deeper. They've got some question marks in the secondary that might cost them this game, and quite a few others if things don't change. But anyway, back to the point. Harold Perkins was SEC Defensive Player of the Week against Arkansas and Alabama last year as a true freshman. That is rarefied air, brother. That is rarefied air. He's now in the inside linebacker spot, so teams can't go away from him. Harold's 6'1", 6'2", and he can fly. He's as athletic and can bend as well as anybody in college football. Very special player. And I expect on 3rd and 6, he'll still be in the game in a variety of ways, but they might just line him up and say, go get him, buddy. They can't stop you. So that'll be something else. But right here, I'm curious about the 3 or 4 key plays that'll happen in the game when Benson has to do any of the following involving Perkins or anybody else at LSU that's coming in. How well does he pass block? That's always number one. It's boring as all get out to talk about it. You have to be a big-time pass blocker as running back in today, because if the following scenario happens, your season is over. And that's Jordan Travis getting hurt. It's just true. You are not going to the playoffs with your backup quarterback at pretty much any program in the country. There's been a few exceptions in college football, but until otherwise proven, you should always consider your season in major jeopardy with a big-time hit on your quarterback and him being out. So he has to pass protect. 2, he has to win some battles in the hole. Not a lot of space against a couple really good players. Perkins, again, is going to be one of them. But LSU's got a bunch of guys that can run. They're safeties. They're going to move guys around. They're going to blitz from different areas. Sage Ryan's a corner that was at safety. They'll blitz him. They'll do different things. How well does Trey make guys miss? Regardless of that. Mason Smith, I mean, you better make him miss. It's a very large human being at 320 pounds, give or take, coming off ACL surgery. He's going to want to get back at Florida State. He played in the game last year, hurt his knee during the game, and unfortunately for him, missed the rest of the year. But if he can make just one or two key plays in the run game, then it opens up the RPO game immensely. That would be when Jordan Travis can absolutely go off. You have to make the safeties step down. You have to. LSU's got a lot of talent in the second. I know they've got questions. And again, I'll get to that next week. I'm still trying to get more information. I'm going to talk to Caroline Fenton a little bit on Friday, etc. She's the LSU publisher for our site, Locked On Tigers. But forget that for a second. We need to focus on the box before we worry about them. If he can make 3 or 4 big plays early in the game, in the run game, whether inside zone, outside zone, toss, option play, whatever, it's going to change what LSU calls. It's going to change what LSU players think. It is going to change their reads, and they will make mistakes. Then Jordan Travis goes off. That is the key for LSU to keep Florida State in front of them. They got the more explosive offense, in my opinion, because of all the weapons. But it really changes if the run game goes early. And I'm going to lean on saying the following. I expect FSU's O-line to at least neutralize the defensive front, which is really good for LSU. They got a lot of talent. Their inside defensive tackle combo is about as good as it's going to get in college football. But that's a lot of experience. Again, I think it's 204 starts that are competing for playing time at FSU. It's ridiculous. They're going to be very well prepared for this game. Now it just comes down to those one-on-one matchups, the juke moves, the spins, the fighting off somebody in the hole, the stiff arm, whatever it is he goes with. Benson is the guy that I'm counting on here to say the following. I expect him to go for at least 100 yards. But we do have to note a couple other things. There's good and bad with the end of last season for Benson. So let's just talk about it. In 4 of the last 6 games, he had 111 or more yards. It's really good. He also had 3 touchdowns against the Gators. Can't get any better than doing a really good job against your arch rival. Fantastic. Florida State beats Florida, go to the bowl game, play Oklahoma. They did not overwhelm, to say the least, especially early on. And just Benson himself, and part of this is, how he's blocked and all that, but 13 carries for 25 yards. Oklahoma had their way with Trey Benson in the Florida State running game. They won late, and that's great, but I bet you Benson wants to make up for that a little bit too. He wants to go to the NFL just like every other guy. Why wouldn't you? Well, here's the first platform for it, and I'm going to go back to it one more time. In the hole, big plays, pass protection, etc. Those are keys. One final point on him before I get ready to go to segment 3, and this is the other key. Doesn't have to be a ton of them. Last year, he had 13 catches for 144 yards. You know me, the stat guy. But he needs to have 2 or 3 catches in this game, even if they're just check downs, 4 to 6 yards. Stay in manageable situations. Be reliable for Jordan Travis. Help the offense be unpredictable. Can't have any drops, nothing else, no bad routes. Precision, precision, precision. Every time. If Trey does that, Florida State has an excellent chance to win the game. Now, I talk about blocking, running, and passing. Like catching the ball is a big part of it, especially if he wants to go to the NFL. And again, I'm going to speak for Trey. I'm sure he does. Have to do it. He got to do it. I'm curious to see how he does in that aspect of the game because I know he has a lot of talent. So let's see what he can come up with in that situation because there may be a third down, like he's just catches a swing pass and he's behind the line. He might have to make maybe even Harold Perkins miss to get that 2-3 yards. And he's not even at the line of scrimmage yet. And they're lined up, head up. Who's going to be? Something to think about. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your one and only first podcast each and every day. I appreciate you coming and checking it out. I'm really going to do everything I can to make this a memorable podcast for you every time. As always, I like to note this is going to be primarily a recruiting podcast. Not going to sugarcoat that in any way. I'm a recruiting nut, have been over 20 years. That is not going to change. That being stated, this is a big game with LSU, and you see I've got 2 segments on LSU. This third segment is another LSU one. This game is special, so it's going to be a little less recruiting over the next week or so, and for good reason. But most of the time, the first 2 segments will probably be recruiting. Now, third segment. This is where it gets really interesting. If you think about linebacker play on the other side, and I said I was going to flip it around, Florida State, they have about as much experience on a team as anybody in the country anyway. But if you really look at it, could you think of a better team to go up against in a game 1 where you really needed inside linebackers with experience? And I mean, let's just start with Tatum Bethune. I know him. He played at Miami Central, played at UCF. That's where I met him. He's a ball hawk. He's fearless, downhill, wants to take on the challenge. LSU's, I don't know which running back it's going to be, so I'll hold off. It could be Williams. It could be Emory. It could be a lot of different guys that end up playing a lot. I don't trust anything that Brian Kelly says about depth charts. I've learned that over the years. He lies about injury and depth charts constantly, so it is what it is. But there will be talented backs for them. And just like Florida State with Jordan Travis, if you give a certain quarterback at LSU manageable second and third downs, ask Alabama, it's not going to go good. So we'll talk more about the quarterback play as we get towards the end of next week, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. But for now, I want to see 2 things from Florida State's linebacker. Number 1 is the basic. Make the sure tackles. Don't give up any easy plays, especially in space, outside the box, screen pass, flare out to the tight end, etc. When you're out there one-on-one and there's nobody near you, you have to bring the guy down. I just got to put the checkbox there. But the other is the key hit, the key strip. They need a play early in the game that designates Florida State's defense is here just as much, if not even more so, than the Noles offense. I don't know if it's Deloach, it could be Bethune, it could be one of the reserves that comes in on the second series. Doesn't matter. Somebody in the box that's playing linebacker for the Seminoles needs to make a big play. Could be in a third down stop, knocking the H back a little bit further back than he expected, stuff the hole, and the cavalry comes. 3rd and short becomes 4th and 2. You get a tackle for loss. Place goes crazy. I'm assuming it'll be a Florida State friendly crowd. It's in Orlando, and you gain momentum. It could be something like that. They need a special play. So don't screw it up and miss the tackle. That's the one checkbox. You got to say that. But can you come up with that special play? Because if you do in big games, it's been shown for decades, that's the team that usually ends up coming out victorious. Now, this may not be the most incredible segment here I've ever done, but it's one of the most important for this game, I can assure you. Because if they can slow down LSU's run game in that first quarter, I don't know, let's just use a number, under 4 yards a carry, and on third downs, they're inefficient. They're 50% or less on 3rd and shorts / 4th and shorts. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, Florida State's the overwhelming favorite for the rest of the game. Because they'll have, with Jordan Travis, you give him and those playmakers like Coleman and those guys the opportunity to have field position, more chances to throw the ball deep, be in whatever formation, whatever play call they want. That would not bode well for the Bayou Bengals. It would bode well from the folks from Tallahassee. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the show. But once again, thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your podcast each and every day. I appreciate it. Just getting started here, starting to learn the ropes of all the things that are going on with Florida State. And there's a lot of info. I'm playing catch up on what they're trying to do in terms of recruiting, but it's a great class. So one of the things, like today I did Danzy. Moving forward, I'm going to try to preview at least one player every 2 to 3 days. That's why I went up and saw him. I was curious, wanted to see what he was like, how he moved. What a phenomenal athlete that kid is. I cannot stress that enough. And again, great kid. Florida State got a great young man that's going to represent the institution well. So also helps that he picked Florida State over Florida, who he told me was his second pick. That's a big deal. Get the key player out of your backyard so he doesn't go play for your rival. So with that, once again, thank you very much for making Locked On your team every day. Everybody have a great day. Appreciate it.